He's not Mr. Legalistic sitting up there with a clipboard, making sure everybody's checking off exactly if they're following the feast exactly how they're supposed to. He wants us to try. It's all with the intent of your heart and trying to seek and please Him and keep these things. He knows if you're trying, and He knows those who aren't. And so that's the biggest thing, is those who aren't trying at all. And He's the ultimate judge. I don't get bogged down. I try to listen to how other people do things with the feasts and stuff, and I pass that on to my listeners as I learn these things over the years. So don't get discouraged out there, I guess that's what I'm saying, because I hear from a lot of people that you're just so discouraged. Been there, done that, still there half the time on these feasts. And so, the only Messianic temple, 30-mile radius from me, told me I wouldn't be welcome there because of my views on Paul. And so even these Messianic congregations stuck on Paul. And so so few, if anything, has it right out there today. And you see the Lord all the time pulling those who really love Him out of the churches because they can see how blasphemous and an apostasy they are. Satan's churches today, folks. And so just follow the Lord, listen to Him. He'll guide you into what to do. Just ask Him to show you how to celebrate the feast. Ask Him, if what you're doing is right or correct, or just, seek Him on it in all things always. Because that's one of the biggest things that the biggest difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant was that the New Covenant would be written on our hearts, where the Old Covenant was written on stone. The New Covenant was written on our hearts, and His Holy Spirit would lead us into how to worship and follow Him. And so that was the biggest difference between the two covenants. People don't understand that. The Old Testament, the Old Covenant, based on bloodlines, the tribe of Israel, the house of Judah, and the New Covenant being all those who wanted to worship and follow the Lord. And He wasn't a Mr. Legalist. If you see through the Lord's own example, He talked to Mary Magdalene at the well. He talked to Nicodemus, the tax collector. He wasn't walking around with a big iron hatchet or whatever, demanding that people worship and follow the Lord and giving them a 60-minute speech on it. It was who He was. There was something about Him that attracted people to Him. It was that inner strength He has, that inner light. People were attracted to Him, and they were following Him all over the place. He had to head out to the wilderness or head out onto a boat just to get away from the crowds of people, not just because word was getting out that He was a great healer. He was a great speaker, and the reason they were so interested in what He was saying was because He had that silent strength about Him, that authority, that He authoritatively spoke of what He knew. And they were attracted to that. They were attracted to that about the Lord. I can't wait to be in heaven and sit at His feet and just, listen to Him preach and speak and talk and laugh. And I know He has a sense of humor. And so many people just get this wrong impression. I get emails from New Agers all the time talking about how could we worship such a tough God. They see one that's full of anger and hate because they don't know how to read what's in front of them. When you look at the Old Testament, and this is basically where all this stuff comes from, their ideas and views of the Bible and religion. If you're on the outside looking in, you see the God railing against all these different tribes of people and having Israel kill them. And this is where Israel gets for the chosen race stuff today from out of the Talmud. And they're not even real Jews. They're fake Jews. They're serpent seed Jews in Israel today. Most of them, not all of them. There is a good handful of Torah-believing, Yahushua-loving Israelites over there. But you have to also consider Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, that's fake Jews today. And where are they? They're in Israel. Now I lost my train of thought. And that happens so much. But that's, somebody wants to send me an IM and tell me what the heck I was just talking about. I get zapped with blanks, It's like, that's alright. And so, but anyway, that's basically what I wanted to just tell you tonight was that, The difference between the old and the new covenants being that we would have it written on our hearts, that we wouldn't be so legalistic and have them written on stone and have to follow them, that He would lead and guide us into the truth. And that doesn't mean going and sitting in a church, because that's man. You know, the Lord raises and He stands up shepherds, yes. But so many people ignore Him for the shepherds. It's like they pass up the bridegroom to be with the best man, you know, so to speak. Do you understand that? And so don't do that. Don't pass up the bridegroom here. You know, He's standing there. He's the door. He says, knock on the door. Knock on Him. You know, don't pass Him up to go hear from the best man Himself. So many people just ignore that whole part of relationship building with Him and miss that entire part. And it involves simply just communication, folks. Communication. Learn how to just talk with the Lord. You don't have to be so formal all the time. You know, when I'm doing dishes, I'm not real formal talking to the Lord. Or I'm driving in my car, not real formal there, just talking to the Lord. And so I find that when you're not so thinking about anything else, a little bit less distracted, is when He'll talk to you the most. Cooking, doing dishes, doing laundry. Listen for that small voice in your spirit, because that's when He'll talk to you the most. So many people not being able to distinguish, and folks, you get this when you try. As I say, I don't know which voice is the Lord's and which one's Satan's. Well, Satan speaks to your head, folks. If you hear a voice in your head, in your mind, telling you something, that's Satan. That's not the Lord. Not even necessarily Satan. Sometimes it's just technology. It's elf. I call it the elf god. Demonic beings, demonic spirits, aliens talking to your head. God doesn't speak to your head. When God speaks, you're going to hear a small guidance of this little tiny voice in your spirit, down in your heart. And so if you're being talked to, you can sit there and say, okay, is that coming from my head or my heart? And so if it's coming from your head, just rebuke it, ignore it. Because God doesn't speak to your head. And I don't know how many times, you know, I'll listen to a radio show. Someone will send me this link. Oh, you got to listen to this guy. And off the bat, I already know he's off the limb somewhere because he's promoting tongue speaking or whatever. And then he'll say outright, the Lord just spoke to me in my head. And you know what my mouth does? It goes click. It goes click. Because he doesn't have anything else I want to hear. If he can't distinguish the Lord's voice and know that the Lord does not speak to your head, then you'll never tell him otherwise, because he's going to be so convinced that this voice he's heard in his head all this time is the Lord, he'll never believe it's Satan until he's found himself giving so many false prophecies and teachings and stuff because of this voice in his head. And it's the same voice that leads George Bush. You were just talking about New Agers complaining about how tough God is on us people. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I'll go back to that one. Because it's basically what the atheists do, and the New Agers too. They read the Old Testament and say, man, he's a hateful God. He's an angry God. Look at all these races he's killing. And folks, the reason why he was annihilating whole races, towns, cities of people, men, women, children, is because they weren't human. They weren't fully human. See, we don't understand how geography was back then as it is today. And of course today, it would blow your minds away to really realize the percent of humans that we think are humans aren't humans at all. But see, back then, it was much more rampant. Much, much more rampant. You had whole towns and villages that were nothing but hybrids, half alien beings and half human. And so, of course, all of this was kind of shadowed over in translations, you know. And it's not really shadowed over as much as people just don't understand, because he mentions the Anunnaki in the Old Testament. He mentions the Nephilim. He mentions all these ites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, and a lot of these ites were hybrid races. And so he mentions them. We just don't put two and two together that, oh, this is one of those hybrid races. Oh, okay. You know? Because you had his people, his true people from Adam and Seth, and you had all the races from them, and then you had the races from Cain.